Hi everyone, my name is Kristen. I'm with Pont Neuf Studio, and this video is going to be on increasing your sales of machine knit hats. So I'm mostly talking about circular machine knit hats, something made on these machines. So there are Addi machines, there are central knitting machines, there's all different brands, and they're really popular right now. If you're someone who's feeling stuck, like, I love making these hats, this is really fun, I want to sell them, I want to have a side business or hobby business going, but they're not selling, you are in the right place. I'm just going to do a general overview today of a bunch of different topics. I could probably talk about this forever. I love both the business side and the creative side. And so I'm making a course. When it's done, I'll link it down below. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to stand out. A lot of people make hats like the one I'm wearing. It's a double brim beanie, 2 layers. I added a pom and a tag. So to stand out, you could do some variation of this. I sell these, and these sell well like they are. One of the main things I do different is my tag, which I will get to later. Some yarns that give your hats extra character are heathered yarns, speckled yarns. You could use multiple strands of finer weight yarns, and when you put them through the machine, you hold them together, and if you cross them over and cross them back as they feed through, it makes a really interesting looking effect. And so that's a way to stand out rather than having just 120 rows of red yarn. You can add in, I have a little bit here, it's a lace weight yarn you could add in. I have some yarn that is a number 2 weight yarn that goes, I could do 2 strands through my machine easily, and it just adds of color and character to your hat. Also, you could branch out from acrylic yarn and you could get some merino wool acrylic blends. One of my favorite yarns or places to get this at the moment, so I'm hoping this stays available for a while, is Premier Yarns. I will go get my skein now quick. So this is Premier Spun Color yarn. It is a weight 4 yarn. It's 65% acrylic, 35% fine superwash merino. These sell really well. Now, this yarn is a little bit more expensive, and you certainly don't want to waste yarn that you already have on hand. You can do half of the hat in this yarn. That's a little bit of a higher price point, but it has a lot of character. It works up, they look so nice, and it's super soft. You could do the first half in this color yarn, and then you can do the second half in yarn that you already have. Like if you have a basic gray or a basic navy, you could do the inner lining part. So I'll do another video on the specifics of this, but your one layer will want to have this one would want to have a few more extra rows, so when you fold it up you can't see the lining. So that's one idea of getting some nice yarns while not wasting the yarn that you already have. You could do team colors. If there are schools or sports teams or anything near you, you can do team color hats. You can't use logos. There's different restrictions for crafters and logos and things like that, so you'd want to check. For example, I live by the University of Arkansas, and from what I've been told, I checked in with them, I can make hats, like I can make red and white hats, but I can't put the hog, which is their mascot, on my hat without a crafter's license. And the crafter's license, if you want to go down that road, actually is pretty affordable. You could do 100% merino, that's another way to stand out. Then there's bamboo blends, there's all different types of yarns, but I would go with a little bit better quality than just your basic acrylic. It'll wash better, it'll wear better, it'll look better, it's usually softer, and it does really help increase sales and helps you stand out. So like I said, I really like Premier Yarns. Spun Colors is one of my favorite. Right now I'm not sure how long it'll last, but they have yarns that work up like fruit, which is kind of cool. So I sold a lot of watermelon hats this year. The way the rows work up, it looks like a watermelon, and then I added like a black palm to it and a tag. So yeah, so you want to get good quality yarns. Even if you're just using acrylic yarn, get ones speckled, tweed, heathered yarns, something with some extra character to them. Another way to stand out is size and style. So I actually have a lot of men that buy my hats. I think less people offer men's size hats. I use Lion Brand's anti-pill, I think it's called Basic Stitch yarn, and I use one entire skein on a Centro 48 pin knitting machine with loose tension, and it makes pretty much the perfect men's size hat. I also use Premier's anti-pill yarn. Most of their yarn, I think they started as mostly anti-pill. Now they have a basics collection, but their anti-pill yarn also works really well for men's hats. So I'll go into more detail. I'm going to go into more detail on that on my course with specific brands and row counts and machines. But yeah, I would definitely include hats that also include men. Another way to stand out is style. So these are popular, the double brim, double layer brim knit hats. These sell well. I also do hats that use an entire skein of Premier, their anti-pill yarn, or I do add extra rows onto Heartland yarn by Lion Brand. And those make a good unisex size hats. And when you add the extra rows, it's a little bit of a thinner worsted weight yarn. You get a really nice slouch. So I'll add a picture of that right here for you to see. So those sell well and it helps you stand out. Recently, I started doing ribbing on knitting machines. So for the longest time, I just did this style hat. I know there are some pretty complicated patterns out there and tutorials on how to do hats that you can't really tell that they're made on a knitting machine, but in the interest of time and like where my skill level is at right now, after making hats like this, I've now started and learned to do ribbing on a hat. So you could do, like, instead of a folded over brim, you could do a ribbed brim and then the rest of your hat. And the ribbing isn't too hard to learn. It does take longer to make, but it gives it some good character to the hat. There are different patterns now to make little kid animal hats. I'm filming this in March. Easter's coming up. I've seen people starting to make hats that look like a little bunny with big bunny ears. So that's another way to stand out, or another niche that you could have. Baby hats for me sell well all year round. So people are always shopping for babies. So that's another style hat you can make. So you can make baby hats that way. So we've talked about yarn. We've talked about different styles. For Christmas, it's fun. You could do really long hats like the double brim, and then you could keep going all the way down and make it a Santa hat where it's like, you know, a couple feet long, and then you could put a big fluffy palm on the bottom. So that's a different style. That's a little bit unique. So you just be creative. Try to stand out with your yarns and your styles. Next, another way to stand out. Oh, and then we've talked about making different size hats. So you can make baby hats, kids hats, women's hats, unisex hats, men's large hats. A lot of people sell women's accessories, but there's, I think, far less selling men's accessories. So that helps to include those. So you could see here on my tag, I make my tags. These are embroidered. So another way to stand out is with your tags. So I embroider my tags, and I'm gonna have a link below, a whole video on how I make these. So these are little embroidered tags. Before I started embroidering them, you could do patches which are laser engraved. So right here, I live in Arkansas. I do a lot of craft shows, and I do the farmers market here in Bentonville. So I put my little heart. I designed these on Canva. I found the Arkansas state and added home underneath. Mountain biking is here. It's really popular. So I made a mountain biking tag. So that's another way to stand out, is with your tags. You can buy tags at like Joann's and Hobby Lobby, but they're not going to be, they're more general tags like handmade with love, or ones that say like, this took a really long time. So there's tags like that, but these tags you can get made on Etsy. These tags are actually embroidered. I have an embroidery machine, and so I make my own tags. Sometimes if I'm behind, I'll have a local embroiderer help me I make whole sheets of them. I'll do a whole video on that and link that, as I said. So how else could you stand out? So tags, palms, you could add palms to your hats. I like adding my palms with a button. And so when I add it with a button, it's nice because there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I really like this hat, but I don't want the palm on her. Oh, can I add a palm onto this hat? And so it makes it versatile, so you don't lose out on this sale. So I use, let me see, I don't have one right now. You could buy pom-pom buttons on Etsy, but what it is you could pull down the elastic part, pull it back up, and wrap it around. If you're like me, I have a lot of craft supplies. I had a bunch of buttons with large holes in them, and so I could just pull the elastic through the buttons I have, down one hole, up through the other, and then around. And that gives you some versatility. You can add your tags on with rivets, but this tag I added on with, I don't know if you can see it, it's a Chicago screw. So the Chicago screws also make things versatile. People can switch around tags at a show. So say they don't want a Bigfoot and they want the puppy dog, right? These are popular. So they want a puppy dog on their tag. They can I just unscrew it. I bring my little screwdriver. I switch the tag around. So that helps with sales as well. Speaking of shows, one way to increase your sales, and some people are not a fan of this, which I can understand, is being outside in the cold. If you're at a cold event, there are just going to be people who are unprepared. They did not come with a hat, with gloves, with the scarves, with what they need to stay warm, and they are willing to spend money in the moment. It doesn't really matter as long as your hat isn't totally astronomically priced or something. They're usually willing to spend money on a hat. The other thing is, I think as crafters, we get stuck sometimes in a rut selling our hats or our items at things like craft shows. My best show of this past year was actually at a beer festival. And so there is a winter beer festival by where I live. It's freezing out and there's people walking around drinking beer in the middle of winter. Something to think about is, where else can you sell your items? So say you have an Addi knit hat business or circular machine knitting hat business and you do baby items and baby hats. Are there any baby shows in your area at different convention centers? Another market I'm doing coming up is a vintage show. And so I don't sell vintage items, but I'm making my items, my tags to fit the theme. So instead of Bigfoot, I'll probably still bring some Bigfoot, but I'll also be bringing, I have these owl tags, I have mushroom tags, so my theme's gonna be 70s. I'm gonna bring some cottagecore theme tags, and I also crochet. I'm bringing purses with mushroom buttons on them. I'm bringing blankets in typical 70s colors. So just sometimes it's good to think outside of the box from a typical craft show, a farmer's market, into what events could you do. So that's all I have for now. I am going to be doing more episodes on increasing your sales. I'm going to go over some pricing, some more stuff on events, more on yarns. So pretty much the stuff I talked about today, I'm going to go more in depth on. So if you have any questions or if you have anything that you would like a video on, feel free to add it in the comments section below, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, have a good one.